the menstrual cycle. Now, never had one in my life, obviously, and I do not know what it's like to go through one. Having trained hundreds, probably thousands of people now, it is a case of that this is one of the largest elements that will need to be managed as you go through your transformation, as you go through your journey towards autonomy. I've seen a significant correlation between those who are able to be proactive with their menstrual cycle versus those that are completely reactive. The differences between those two are absolutely outstanding when it comes to where they're holding their body weight wise, how their mindset is, how they are emotionally during these time frames. It is completely individual. Like I said, I've never had one, but I have had to take medicine that actually mimicked side effects of PMS. So I totally understand the PMS side of things, but I can't imagine that on a month-to-month basis. But if we look at the types of phases that you go through during your menstrual cycle, it's super important that you understand this. During the follicular phase, first 14 days, that is where estrogen is your highest, which means that your mood is going to be stable, you're going to be able to recover, you're going to be more happy, and your ability to train and be exercise and do all these normal things is absolutely fantastic. As you move through to the luteal phase, this is where PMS starts to kick in, and this is where mood, lethargy, triggers of hunger and cravings will all start to come in as you move towards a time that is a little bit more difficult. Keeping it at the most base level, it's so important that whatever your side effects, whatever you get in your phases, is that you know how to deal with them and you are proactive when it comes to knowing these times. You cannot be truly accurate on a day-to-day basis. However, you will do this and you will do that during your menstrual cycle because it's affected by so many different things. But tracking it is your key fundamental area. Very similar to food in this sense. If you don't know, you don't know, and nothing will change if nothing changes. So track your menstrual cycle over the month and get familiar with the days, day 26, day 25, day 14, when you start feeling great and you don't feel great at all. Because what that will allow you to do over the month's period, if it becomes day 25, that is your slump day, and you start feeling not so great about yourself, the ability to know that coming into that week that you're going to be hitting day 25, and that's normally when you start feeling not too great, you being able to be proactive, set yourself up emotionally, set yourself up physically, and set yourself up from a structure and a system routine side of things to be able to manage that as best as possible. During the dieting phase, you'll have seen, or you might have gone through that in years gone by, where you do great for 2 to 2.5 weeks, PMS hits, you then undo your month's worth of feeling great, doing great things, because you've let that overtake your emotional side of things. Then you've ate to make yourself feel better, and then you're back round in this monthly cycle again where you're doing well for a couple of weeks and then it comes undone as PMS comes around. So it's really important that you are proactive about that. You are making it a point that you are controlling this. Now, doesn't mean that you have to do single thing every single day, week 1 the same as week 4. I would just ask you to understand and be proactive about knowing your cycle. As you come into those latter weeks where when you're not feeling too great, or your side effects of that PMS is there, you can take your foot off the pedal when it comes to hitting all your sessions or doing all of your steps. Depends on how severe your side effects are, based on individual variants. But you can make a solid effort to start and do something better than you did last time. Exercise, and although it doesn't feel like it in the moment, will make your symptoms and side effects better by being able to go and do some exercise. The release of endorphins will help with that kick in the teeth that you get from the side effects of PMS, and you'll be able to combat that, and you do that through exercise. And it's more like a case of a short-term pain to go and do the exercise to get a long-term null of the side effects. So I would definitely recommend exercise on that side of things. And like I said, you can take it easy during those weeks. You just got to know thyself. If you think you can motor through it and you can do all that you need to, absolutely fine, do that. But if you are one of those people that suffer significantly, then you have to factor this into your weeks, into your months, into your expectations of what you expect of yourself from a fat loss perspective or from a journey perspective. If you are going to be able to do 3.5 weeks worth of training or 3.5 weeks worth of steps, and then, in that last week, where you didn't do any of those steps, we can't expect those same level of results, which is never going to be the case. So other things are on that. So track your cycle as best as you can. Prepare yourself proactively for those times and get to know thyself when it comes to the side effects and whether you can continue to train, whether you need a few days off, and you can give yourself that compassion to say, okay, well, it's this time at the moment, so in 2 days time I'm going to go back to the gym, or I'm going to go back to doing my steps, and you give yourself that time. The other one is that food intake and the things that you've been doing for the last 20 years to get over your symptoms during menstruation will not be the things that potentially you can do during the time that you're focusing on controlling your calorie intake and making sure that you can continue to get the results that you want. You know, in the last 20 years, every time you've had these specific symptoms, you may have just grabbed whatever you wanted from the cupboards and just been like, I feel like X, so I'm going to do X. And that will be something that you will need to break over time. Now, I am not here to tell you, because I have not felt those symptoms, what is right and what is wrong. But I can tell you that it's not a great, particularly emotionally crutch place to be, that every time that you feel a certain way, you reach for food. However, that is going to be something that you have to work on over the longer term if you are wanting to manage your weight over the long term, because ultimately, if you are wanting to manage your weight management in 10 years, 15 years, or even 5 years, you aren't going to be able to afford or be able to have that point where you just don't care about your nutrition for 5 to 6 to 8 days and then come back and expect things to be the same that they were. That's not going to be the case if you're definitely eating, the high volumes of calories and then going around in that cycle. It's effectively a recipe for yo-yo dieting. So I would definitely implore you to move away or try and shift your focus away from utilizing food as that mechanism to get better. There's plenty of things that you can do, like I said, exercise, just going to speak to people, watching TV, doing anything that doesn't involve a calorie intake is great for being able to manage this time. And then on the flip side of that is that you can have food intake, you can increase your food intake during that time. Just speak to your coach about it. And then it just, as long as you're expecting not to get fat loss in that week, it may be a plausible way to do 3 weeks of dieting, 1 week of having a higher calorie intake to deal with the symptoms, and then just stay at maintenance and then come back around again. While we're on the subject of fat loss, during this time period, whatever period of, excuse the pun, but whatever period of time of this menstrual cycle, there is no point in time in this cycle where you will not get fat loss. The only reason why you may not feel like you're getting fat loss is because of the symptoms of either bloating, water retention, or the fact that your scale weight will be heavier. So during these times, we cannot take the scale weight, cannot take pictures as our main goal here or the way that we're doing things. The main thing that you need to focus on during these times is going to be your process. If you can honestly say that you ticked your boxes, you did the things that you wanted to do during that time frame, or at least 80% of them, 90% of them, you can honestly say that you did as best as you can. And I would not be comparing your body weight the week of, the week after, or the week before to see what fat loss I got from that week. You can only compare your menstrual cycle because of the hormonal changes from week 1 of your cycle to another week 1. Week 2 to another week 2, week 3 to another week 3, and week 4 to another week 4. So you can't compare them 1, 2, 3, and 4 because of the hormonal changes, the changes in bloating, water retention, all of those areas. And that's really what we need to focus on. Fat loss will still occur if you hit the processes. It won't be represented on the scale or the way that you look, but as you come through that cycle again, you'll notice that in those first couple of weeks, you're going to be looking better than you did the month before or the month before that. So it's really important that like I mentioned, just to recap, understand your cycle, be proactive about that, find a way, be easy on yourself with the training and on walking if you need to be, or know thyself about when to train and when to pull back. There will be periods where you will need to move away from that emotional connection to food if you do have one, and ultimately all of those areas will all combine together to knowing thy menstrual cycle, knowing what's expected of you. And I see a lot of people on that latter one where we spoke about where you can't compare your scale weight will completely blow their gasket, and they will go off plan because their body weight didn't go down or it went up by half a kilo, and then they got the fuck it mentality because they didn't realize that they were supposed to be on their menstrual cycle, and it was natural and it was absolutely necessary for their body weight to go up. So they hit fuck it because they were unaware or uneducated or not enough proactive nature to understand their menstrual cycle at the right time. So when you're looking at your scale weight, when you're looking at when it's gone up and why it's gone up, and you're bloated and all these other variables, look at those factors of where you are in your menstrual cycle, so you can blame it on the menstrual cycle, and you can blame it on your body having those natural responses, as opposed to saying, fuck it, this diet isn't working, or whatever it is isn't working. It's because that's what your human physiology, your female physiology was meant to do. So it's okay to actually have that. So hopefully that makes sense.